give you the games and there's college games, and we're a week away from pro games. Heck, there's a game on Thursday. So we're just engulfed in football right now. It's the most wonderful time of the year. Talking a lot of football today. We started the show talking Vols. They get the win last night over Bowling Green. 38-6 is the final. They laid 14-6 at the halftime. And got a lot of calls earlier. Alex gave his perspective. I talked about it, and I know Tony the Stud has been holding on the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. So let's get Tony in, and if you want to join him, we've got time to take a couple of calls here. What's going on, Tony?
What's going on today, Mickey? How you doing?
Man, I'm doing fantastic. I mean, I could not do better. My Lord, I'm doing great.
He's sitting there watching Butch Jones lay bricks down on the field down there.
Be nice.
Well, I mean, he did lay the brickwork for us. You know, I'm actually still over here at Neyland trying to coax Milton out of the pocket. Still having a hard time getting him to come out of there. We're working on it, though. Hey, thoughts on some of the game stuff last night? I think that you mentioned, you know, a lot of things, and you said if you would have, you know, before the game saw 38-6, would you have signed off on it? I wouldn't have.
Okay.
I wouldn't have signed off on that. I would have been more with the 50-52 point range offensively. You know, critiquing the game yesterday, it's good that the Vols won. I mean, but it's Bowling Green. You expect an SEC team, no matter who they are, to win their non-conference games and go into their conference schedule 3-0. I think for the most part, for most of the teams in the SEC. So this was pretty standard. We all expected Tennessee to rush somewhere around 300 just because of what Bowling Green had done in the previous season. What shocked me is that Milton was actually a statue. I mean, he didn't move around in the pocket a lot, and he missed on his throws deep. I think that his decision-making was a lot to be questioned. I think there's tons of room for improvement, and I think the offensive line did a great job. Sucked to see Mays go down. But overall, I think that it's good to get a win, but I think the Vols left a lot out there last night. I think they lost just a ton of stuff. You know, we were talking about going in and playing mistake-free football, and I wouldn't say that we played mistake-free last night. A lot of execution errors, and just didn't seem to see Milton's arm with the power that he has. I was looking for accuracy, and I didn't see that. I will say that Tillman was open several times, and he just flat out missed him. And the one that he did, it was pretty well defended, actually, and Tillman had to go up and get it. So this week I'm looking for them to do better, boys. I want to see much better execution, because if they roll into Florida like that, it's not going to be pretty.
Well, it's the Johnny Majors Bowl is going to be a great test. I mean, Pittsburgh is nothing to write home about, but they're a competent football team that's also not, you know, the level of like having to play Florida next would be a heavy lift, right? It's kind of a nice intermediary between Bowling Green and Florida, maybe Pitt somewhere right in the middle. You just brought up the touchdown pass, and I put this in my notes watching the game. On his one touchdown pass, he threw to the only receiver on the field that was covered. Now, the guy made a great play. You give Tillman credit. I bet you Cedric Tillman is wishing Joe Milton had hit him on a few of those balls, because he'd be having quite the stat sheet right now. He'd be sitting pretty, leading the team in receptions. I think that the other side of the ball is equally as important to talk about this, and everybody's going to talk about Milton. It was obvious. We all saw it, and you don't have to be Greg Cosell to break down and see exactly where some of the deficiencies were. If you're going to run that kind of offense, you saw it in the second quarter, the defense has to be opportunistic and create turnovers. Because if you're going to try to score 40 a game, you only have to give up 39 or less. Right. But you've got to have the ability to get the ball back, put your offense in a couple of good positions a couple of times a game. You don't have to be perfect, but you've got to be able to take some chances, create a few turnovers. I was disappointed. The turnovers were 2-0 at the end of the game. Hendon Hooker had the bobble snap. Really, it was 1-0 for most of that ball game.
Yeah.
That they lost the turnover battle to Bowling Green. I need to see the defense create some turnovers and have some quick changes. As coaches, you'd call them quick changes. You do it all the time in practice. You all of a sudden get guys in a drill, and then you tell them you got 60 seconds to line up, the ball's on the 15, and you got 4 plays to score. And you help the players adjust to quick changes that way. But that defense is going to have to be a lot more opportunistic, because otherwise you're going to see teams do exactly what Bowling Green did. Just don't snap it. Don't snap the ball. And you have the ball for a whole quarter.
If I'm not mistaken, and you can back me up or you can say, no, that's not right. I think the Vols ran 7 plays in the second quarter for 13 yards in the second quarter.
It was 3 until 1 minute left. They had one drive, and the defense has got to get off the field. That's why you've got to be opportunistic. What you're getting at. Yes. That's exactly what I'm getting at. They salted a whole quarter away, and it should not be in Bowling Green's ability to do that against Tennessee.
And that was Bowling Green, who last year couldn't throw the ball and could run it a little bit. And who knows if they'll be able to throw it or run it this year. Pittsburgh, I went back and looked, they were 6-5 last year. They were a middle of the pack offensive team. So as you said, to me, the Pittsburgh game is such a fantastic test for this squad to see where they are.
It's perfect.
It's a great
perfect matchup.
Then you get Tennessee Tech to kind of take your breath. Then it's Florida. Then it's Missouri. Then South Carolina, then it's Ole Miss. And Ole Miss, guys, their offense, I mean, they can keep it away for a quarter or two, and they can keep it away from a lot of people because they can run some long drives. So a lot of work to be done. All right, Lucas is giving us all kinds of hand signals. So either I'm supposed to bunt or steal a base, or we're supposed to take a break. So we'll take a break here. We'll come back. Hour number 2 of the show. We're going to break all this down in about 20 minutes with Mike Wilson of the Knoxville News Sentinel, as he will discuss his observations of Tennessee's opening game over Bowling Green. Headlines next, and your call, 615-737-1045.
It's Thursday Night Football as Tom Brady and the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers host the Dallas Cowboys to start the NFL season. Coverage starts Thursday night at 6:30 on 104.5 The Zone.
observations of last night's game. I can't wait to do that. And Austin P with a win locally. I think Mike is on the line. We'll get to Mike in just a minute. Mike, hold on. We haven't forgotten you. We'll get to you in just a minute. But Josh Heupel in Tennessee, a win in week 1, 38-6 over Bowling Green. I asked this question off the top of the show, and Tony the Stud, who's always real active in the Zone TV chat, I said, would you sign off on winning a game by 32 points? I didn't give the score, but I said winning by 32 and rushing for 326 yards and holding the other team to just 6, although that does make the math then if you just add 32 to that. So, Tony, good job breaking that code. But if you'd sign up, would you sign up for that? And I think a lot of Vol fans would probably think, okay, it's Bowling Green. They were terrible. That means we probably get up early and then just coast. Maybe it's 21-0 at the half. And, you kind of coast out from there and score your 17 in the second half. Not that it was 14-6 at halftime. Alex, I think a lot of Vol fans would probably sign off on that sight unseen because it means you win and you see the score and you think, okay, it's not close. The defense obviously just stopped them cold. But Tony called in and said, no, man, I think they should have scored 50. They left a bunch of points on the board. There's been a lot of talk about Joe Milton. You brought up the fact that they lost the turnover battle to Bowling Green. And so just over the course of the show, I wrote this down on my notes. I wrote it down. You can't really see that. I can't aim this at. But I said, maybe this just says more about who the Vols are right now. Their team that their team that beats Bowling Green 38-6, and they have trouble with the passing game pretty much after the first quarter of the game.
Well, if you had been up 17-0 at halftime, no, it would have been more than that. 24-0 at halftime, you'd have taken that, right? Yep. And if the 14-6 had come in the second half, we wouldn't have been having a lot of this conversation. I'm taking a look, as I said to lead off the show, glass half full. It's Friday. We got 1 hour left, and we're getting out of here, and I'm going to have a great weekend. It's going to be a lot of football. It's going to be a lot of fun. Glass half full for the Vols because I think you look at it and you see a team that was playing with joy, seemed to be well coached, seemed disciplined, wasn't perfect, but you didn't expect him to be. Think of all the talent that they lost. Josh Heupel has been able to sign a shell, a couple of guys. The starting quarterback's only been in town since April. And that's just when he signed. I don't even know when he actually got there. My memory escapes me on that. I think the defense is a big thing. You got to be opportunistic if you're going to play 85 points. Because somebody called into Buck's show earlier, and I turned the radio off. So that was a terrible take. And said, well, why are we playing fast all the time? Why can't we just do that some of the time? Because sometimes it doesn't work. You have to commit to your style. You play fast all the time because that's how you tire out the defense. It is a sustained 60 minutes affair. It's not as if you can just play fast and we'll dial it back and then because that doesn't work. You're either all in or you're all out, but you've got to be opportunistic defensively to make that work, create some turnovers, go from there. I'll tell you one other note that I wrote down. This is just a note that I feel like needs to be said. Trayvon Flowers returned punts last night. Catch the punt. Stop pointing at the ball. And if you have to run up and fair catch it, catch the ball. I bet they lost 75 yards last night off of the goofy punter with the rugby-style kick most of the time, kicking the ball 30 yards in the air and then it bouncing 20 yards a punt. I know it's hard to get up that quickly and catch the ball, but you got to catch the ball. A lot of hidden yardage. It's just like when Adoree Jackson wouldn't catch him for the Titans. It kills you, costs you a first down. Over the course of a good game against a good opponent, that matters.
Just as an aside, since you brought that up, Adoree Jackson as a punt returner, now he was injured and beat up at the end of his tenure when he was really just supposed to be a cornerback.
And on the YouTube chat, we just found out that somebody says Joe Milton got to Knoxville in June. So even less than I was saying. Sorry.
Well, he's so big. Half of him was probably still in Michigan at that point. And half of him was in Knoxville because he's just a giant human being. But Adoree Jackson as a punt returner is one of the more disappointing things in recent Titans memory for me, because I remember sitting with Brent Doherty when they drafted him and we watched not his defensive highlight film. We watched his offense and kick and punt return highlight film from USC. And we were giddy. My dad said the same thing. Other. Oh my gosh. And you thought they finally have some dynamic punt returner. This is going to be, oh my gosh, I can't wait. And then by the end, he'd been beat up so much and he'd been injured. Like you said, he wouldn't even go catch the ball.
He lost the will to do it.
Yeah, he did. He didn't want to be back there. And at the end, I didn't want him back there. For the last 2-3 years, nobody wanted him back there. Remember, they just kept sticking him back there. And we kept asking, why is he still back there? Nobody could give us a good answer. This is your show, too. People are calling in. We've had some great Vol calls today. But Mike from Clarksville who wants to talk about the home team, Austin Peay. Mike, welcome to the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. Yeah, big win tonight over Chattanooga. Draylon Ellis, 4 TD passes.
Let's just let you know, I followed this team since I got out of the Marines back in '76 and moved back home. Went to Austin Peay a couple of years, and then that's when we were working on the championship the last time. I believe we got a championship team now. And, with number 25 beat number 18 for the first time we've ever beat UT Chattanooga, and that's we were able to beat them, and I mean beat them and look good.
1976, I think Vic Apple, my dad, was a freshman there playing for Austin Peay that year. He was playing for Boots Donley, and then he transferred to MTSU, and Boots Donley followed him.
So Boots followed him and him following Boots, huh? That's pretty cool. But, yeah, no, that's what it was, man. I was driving all over Murray and all the closer games, Bowling Green, of course, a lot of games at Austin Peay. We finally win the conference, and we get denied a spot. So. They look good. I don't think they're going to be denied this year. I just don't see it, buddy. They looked real good last night.
Well, hey, anytime you can beat somebody for the first time in your history, you line up over and over and over again to do that.
And let me say this, and I appreciate the call. It's been a crazy summer for college athletics because we're back and we're up to our necks again in expansion talk. And that always freaks some people out. And we're talking about name, image, and likeness, which I'm literally doing a show from a college football press box today at Arkansas State. If you just joined us, I'm back at the mothership today doing the show, sitting in the press box, looking down at the most glorious sight on
Butch
earth.
Jones land, baby.
Butch Jones. I haven't seen Butch, but I'm looking over towards where he is right now in the ops center. But there were a lot of people complaining, Alex, because they were saying, "Oh, we don't even know college football anymore. This is not the conferences are so big you can't drive to the games." And well, let me tell you, it hasn't been that way in forever. And I'm a purist, and I don't like when things change. I can be as get off my yard as old guys anybody. And people talking about name, image, and likeness. This is going to change everything. Hasn't changed anything. Did you watch UCF last night play Boise State? Were you thinking about somebody getting $1,700 because they tweeted about Postmates? No one cared. They just watched the game. And if you truly want, if your thing is the big time is just too big time, I just don't get it. Okay. Then watch Austin Peay, Tennessee Tech, Tennessee State, where you can drive from. That still exists. If you want that kind of football, where you're a Murray State fan, and the people at Austin Peay, you know them by name. You know their kids because you see each other at football and basketball games. If you want that experience, it's still there. That's the beauty of college athletics.
But it's also not true that you can't drive to games. What SEC game can you not drive to? I mean, unless you fall asleep after 3 hours.
Well, but that's a complaint that I read from some national writer this fall that, it wasn't charming anymore and the charm was gone out of it. Hey, man, get over yourself. It's an industry now that makes hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, should the athletes share more in that? Yeah. And this name, image, and likeness, the name, image, and likeness thing doesn't give them a piece of that pie. It gives them a piece of pie that they go and get on their own. Yeah. So ultimately, we'll see how all that works out. But stop that with that doesn't exist anymore. It exists. And the caller who was talking about going to Austin Peay games and going to school there and, having this being from that area and getting out of the Marines and that being his team. And now they've got a chance to be good again. Mike from Clarksville, for all the Mikes from Clarksville who wants that experience, if that's the college football experience that you want, it's out there. You can go to Swanee. You can go to so many places and get that old school, small school feel of college football. Whatever experience you want, it's there. It's like a buffet. Get what you want.
Well, and let's have a little Friday therapy. Like Frank Costanza would say, or George Costanza would say, serenity now. Serenity now. Vols fans, we have a team. They may or may not be any good this year. Probably not going to win all their games. You can be bad and boring with Jeremy Pruitt, or we can all take a little bit of zen and relax and put the crazy back inside of us for a couple of months and appreciate a team that is at least going to look like they're probably exciting, with a team that can play a little offense, because you've got to give them time. The talent exodus, I would argue, but this is a good question. Did any coach leave Knoxville in worse shape than Jeremy Pruitt left it? I think maybe when Derek Dooley left, it was worse for Butch Jones, but maybe not. Maybe not. And you've got this. I mean, who knows what's going to come with the investigation? That's a whole nother wrinkle. I'm talking about even without that, might have left it in worse shape than ever. It's going to take some time, boys.
Well, I mean, I like how you just casually mentioned. Well, I mean, and the investigation.
I'm just talking about the players I have on this year's team.
I know, but then you just casually
much less the other crap.
Oh, and the investigation. Yeah, there's just this thing.
Out of sight, out of mind, Mickey. This is Zen Alex, the Vols fan. Zen Alex, glass is half full, and I'm going to enjoy some offense.
Got a cat with a sweater and a tweet telling people don't be crazy. I love it. Ironic Alex Apple sitting in for the Hitman today. When we come back, Mike Wilson, all his observations from the Vols last night and today and going forward. What does he think? You can find out next. Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone.
Jason Martin and Ramon Foster might have the mics, but the show is about you, the fam.
You guys are the show. We have some microphones. That means you can hear us. We want to hear you. We want to know you. Doesn't mean that your voice doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that ours matters any more than yours does. We just love you guys.
J. Martin Ramon, Monday, starting at 6 on 104.5 The Zone.
Let's go to the phone now. I'm joined by Dr. Stephen Lloyd of Cedar Recovery. And Doc, when I first started coming and talking to you guys, you talked to me a whole lot about the dangers of fentanyl and how people who are dealing with opioid addiction can get mixed up in that. Friday afternoon. It might as well be Friday night. Why don't you just leave work now? You got my permission. Just go. Just start your weekend now. Just get out of there. Just get the heck out of there. And if your boss is like, what are you doing? You're like, well, first of all, I wasn't doing anything because I've been watching Blaine and Mickey on the computer for the last 2 hours. So, and then Buck before that, I've been on my computer all day. So I'm just going to leave because Alex Apple said I could. That's what you're supposed to say.
Later,
Mike
guys.
Wilson. Mike Wilson, that doesn't apply to you, Lucas. You got to fly this plane for the next few minutes. Mike Wilson, he would never leave early. He would never clock out early. He joins us at by Mike Wilson on Twitter, Knoxville News Sentinel. We're going to ask you for your observations, but we do have a caller, DJ, and this is the way we're going to do it. He's on the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. We're going to let him ask the first question. So, DJ, say hello to Mike Wilson, and what's your question?
Hey, Mike, how you doing there?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. By the way, I am clocked out. I just left work.
Eat it, boss, man.
But what I want to ask is that last night and everything, when the Vols were doing pretty good, you know, they were good in the first quarter and everything. But when they go these 3 and outs and what have you in this up tempo, what is going to help our defense, or what can the Vols do in that situation that's going to help our defense to rest and be ready for the SEC play or during the season? I'll be quiet and hang up.
Yeah, that's a great question. And that certainly is one of the things you looked at with Josh Heupel coming in, is where his defense is ranked statistically. And it's hard to judge those defenses because of exactly what you're talking about. When an up-tempo offense goes 3 and out, it's usually a minute or so of possession. Then the defense is back on the field. There's not really a recipe in terms of rest and recuperation for that. Your best bet is depth. And Tennessee has that depth on the defensive line, I think. I think they can go too deep there. I don't know they have it at linebacker. I think they might have it in the secondary, but they're going to have to find out on that. But yeah, there's really no real answer to that. When there's back-to-back 3 and outs, all you can really do is have depth because if you've got kind of one string of guys that can play, you're going to be in trouble if those 3 and outs stack up, which they definitely did in the second quarter yesterday.
Mike Wilson, our guest from Knoxville News Sentinel. Let me ask you this, and this is an abstract question, so you just kind of divide it up however you think. And I wrote this down without even thinking about it, but here's the question. Did you leave the game last night with more questions or more answers than you walked in with?
I'd actually say about the same. There were a couple pleasant surprises. I thought Theo Jackson was outstanding. And that secondary is a group I've wanted to see play better. I thought the wide receivers didn't play as well as I would have liked to see. I thought that was going to be the strength of the offense, but Jalen Hyatt had a couple really bad drops. They weren't helped by quarterback play, and they also in turn didn't help quarterback play. So offensively, probably more questions. Defensively, I think I left with more answers. So let's split it down the middle and say I kind of left not really knowing how much we actually know about this Tennessee team as a whole after week 1.
Mike Wilson, our guest on Blaine and Mickey on 104.5 The Zone.
Mike, what defensively, if anything, did your mind change about last night? I brought up the fact that I thought the defense needed to be more opportunistic if you're going to play so fast, creating some quick changes, turnovers, and trying to give yourself an advantage even after, yes, sometimes 3 and outs are going to put you behind the 8 ball. Being opportunistic is really your best chance behind that. Did anything that you expected to see from the defense not come to fruition last night or vice versa?
No, I touched on the secondary, I thought was really good. It is a group, and this goes for the whole defense. It's not a group that forced a lot of turnovers last season. That's definitely an area that they have to improve in. I thought the pass rush was better than I expected. But then again, Bowling Green, their offensive line, I think, was largely redshirt freshmen and sophomores. So it's hard to know exactly how good that defensive line is. But yeah, they didn't have any turnovers last night. I don't believe they had an almost interception that got overturned that Jalen McCullough didn't quite catch. But yeah, in terms of surprises, I thought the secondary was really nice. Alontae Taylor had a couple really good plays. I thought Trayvon Flowers was steady. That group was good, and that group should be the backbone of this defense. So I think you'd like to see them round it out with turnovers, but I thought they played pretty darn well last night, and obviously didn't allow any points apart from the 2 field goals.
And I'm not around the program close enough to know. I don't know if you are or not. If it's even really within our abilities to tell. How vanilla was the offense last night? I mean, for a while, I could tell they were running about 3 plays and disguising it 12 different ways and running the same thing over and over. But do you expect to see more dynamism? Could that have contributed to why it seemed to get a little stagnant there, mainly in the second quarter and a piece of the second half as well?
Tennessee was so crisp early with those, scripted early drives. I mean, the execution was there apart from that one missed throw from Joe Milton downfield to Cedric Tillman. But it did get kind of stagnant. I don't know if I viewed it as much with the play calling as much as I did just a real lack of execution in that second quarter. I thought Milton struggled a lot in that quarter in terms of reading the defense and making the throws that were necessary. But I thought after that, it was pretty clear Tennessee just wanted to establish the run, and that's going to be the offensive strength. Now it looks like, Tyon Evans looked outstanding. Jabari Small did too, but I think Tyon Evans looked like the starting running back moving forward late in the season. But yeah, I just kind of looked at it as Tennessee's just kind of rolling through this game business-like at a point. They didn't really try to throw a lot in the second half. But yeah, it was vanilla, but you also were playing arguably the worst program in FBS. So it was just get out the game, I think, at a point.
But it's a big difference, too, if Jalen Hyatt catches 50 yards of passes. And even in the second quarter, the big drop that stopped they had one drive. And then Bowling Green puts together 2 6-7 minute drives, quarter's over. They ran, 4 plays at the end. They got 7 plays total in the second quarter. They're like one drive, and Jalen Hyatt drops the ball. Maybe that's makes a big difference in how we're talking about this game if that one pass is completed.
I think it does. And I think, too, you look at the 2 downfield throws that Joe Milton had to Cedric Tillman. He missed that one in the first quarter. They still scored on that drive, though. So you kind of say, all right, well, still scored. But the missed one later where Tillman dove and just missed it, I think that was the third quarter. Those plays at that point really change how you feel about this game and specifically how you feel about Joe Milton. Even if he converts one of those 2, I think you feel a lot differently about that. But yeah, there were plays right there that were left on the field, but I think what we know about this Tennessee team is they're not going to have a big margin for error in any game against an SEC team. You're talking Missouri, Kentucky, like those are the games that Tennessee has to win if they want to reach a bowl game. So those are plays they have to make. And, they didn't make them against Bowling Green. So you got to kind of see that jump forward and see if they can make those plays moving forward with Jalen Hyatt, Joe Milton, all those guys.
Mike Wilson, our guest here on Blaine and Mickey. It was interesting watching Milton because I know you guys up there, Mike, you get to see some of practice and then you got to see less or however all that went down. But the one thing I kept reading was guys were talking about how like his fastball was always coming at you. Like this guy is just throwing the ball. And I was just struck by he could be standing there flat-footed in the pocket and flick his wrist and throw the ball 60 yards like the rest of us might, throw an orange across the room to a buddy. His arm strength is phenomenal. But if you look, and I had written his stats down in 3 years at Michigan, he was 56.6% passer, and he had one more pick, I think, than he did touchdown. And he was kind of good with his legs at times in a lot of ways, and a big arm. And in a lot of ways, Mike, that's kind of who he was last night. He was who he had been.
And I think that's 100% the case. The story I wrote after the game was just, you saw the tantalizing skills, but you also saw the maddening elements of Joe Milton. And that very much is his MO from Michigan. You saw the arm, you saw the ability to run, you saw just the physical skills, but you also saw the missed throws. You also saw the moments where he starts to run probably too soon instead of keeping his eyes downfield. And those were certainly some of the knocks on him in leaving Michigan. So, yeah, I think we saw a lot of the same skills. The question I've had all along, and one I still feel isn't answered, is this offense more conducive to make him a better quarterback than what he was running up at Michigan, where there's more under center, much more pro style with what Jim Harbaugh does. Whereas this offense kind of breaks it down a little bit more simply to left, right. You kind of have an easier time reading it and getting the ball out. But I thought last night Joe Milton didn't get the ball out, instead ended up sitting in the pocket. Whether that's patience or not seeing the play, it's hard to know at this point. But yeah, I think it's pretty clear that he kind of might be what he is, but you got to figure out a way to work within the offense with him.
Well, that's what you're paying him to do, right? You want a duplication of the Lane Kiffin effort when he turned Jonathan Crompton into not a total waste of our time, into a really good quarterback.
You turn him into straight out of Crompton, yeah.
Yeah, and Mickey, I think we've got some callers on the line too. I want to give them a chance.
Sure, Chris from Murfreesboro. Hey, Mike, people just want to talk to you. We can't keep you from your
popular
public.
guy.
There's a first time for everything.
No, man, you're very popular in Nashville, whether you know it or not. And even in Murfreesboro, because that's where Chris is calling from, with a question for Mike Wilson from the Knoxville News Sentinel. Hey, Chris, what's going on?
Oh, going great. Got to go to the game last night. Everything was good. We came out to win. But my question was, and we kept talking about with the vanilla offense, do you think any of that had to do with maybe just trying not to put a lot out there on film for when it comes time to play the SEC opponents?
Yeah, I've never bought too heavily into that theory. I mean, people know what Josh Heupel's offense is. They can pull up years prior of what UCF has done. Obviously, different players, different skill sets you've got here. But, I mean, to some extent, that offense is always going to look like what it is. Because, I mean, teams, when you play these teams early in the season, they go back and look at years prior. They scout 2-3 years back. They've got game film on this. They kind of know what you're going to do. I mean, the SEC people, too. They can look back and see what Josh Heupel's done. They saw him at Mizzou. I mean, they've got a pretty good grasp of what he is. So I think there's always an element of not putting a ton on film, but I don't know that I buy too extremely into that because these guys are paid a lot of money to know what teams are going to do and what they're going to look like later in the season.
How much more fun is Heupel's program going to be to cover than Jeremy Pruitt's? Regardless of what their record is.
That laughter.
There's definitely a different air in being around the program is the way that I'll say that. There's just, I mean, in going to practices, you kind of feel a different attitude. I don't know if there was a seriousness being around everything with the Pruitt regime and the practices, and not to say there's not a seriousness with Josh Heupel, but it feels like the players are enjoying being on the field more. And that's definitely more enjoyable as a journalist to be around when it seems like the people you're talking to are enjoying themselves, opposed to just kind of being slogged down and going through it.
Mike, one thing that stood out to me, and I've seen this and we've all seen it, when a new coach or maybe a new play caller comes in and they want to show you how smart they are. And that's a tale as old as time. I don't care what level of football. Sometimes a guy's going to force his system so hard and you think, gosh, if you just do this. The one thing that I liked most about last night was they took the second half kickoff and they ran the ball 8 times and they ran it right down their throat because there were a bunch of people freaking out at halftime because it was 14-6. He didn't panic. He didn't try to show everybody how smart he was. They ran the ball 8 times right at Bowling Green and scored a touchdown in a minute and 40 seconds or something.
And that's been a misconception around Heupel's offense, is that it's all pass all the time.
Right.
They will run the ball. They did that at UCF. He did that at Missouri too. And it's clear that Tennessee has 2 very capable running backs in Tyon Evans and Jabari Small. Both of them had 116 yards last night. Both had a touchdown. That was impressive. And that again is something that people have to realize about Heupel's offense is they're going to get the ball to their skill players no matter what position it is. And it's clear that Tennessee has some options at running back. And, Small started last night. Evans got more run as the game went on. But Tennessee having both those options is really interesting because you saw Eric Gray and Ty Chandler leave. And those are 2 very talented players. And yet Tennessee seems like they might be fine at running back despite those guys being gone.
Mike Wilson with us from the Knoxville News Sentinel. I was thinking, as I was sort of processing the game last night, and I've come off of this thought a little bit, that might have been a 52-point game. They scored 52 points. All of us are calling in today talking about how much fun it is to watch the Vols. It's amazing the difference between 38 and 52 just from a mental standpoint. I'm sitting there thinking, the difference between this output and the 52-point output might just be that Tennessee's playmakers on the outside, mainly at receiver, just are kind of mediocre. Not really game-breaking talents, and maybe that makes Joe Milton look the way he does, the offense look the way he does, and that's just going to be a fact of life this year. I mean, in watching these receivers, hearing about them in practice, getting a vibe from them in fall camp, do my expectations or what I'm describing live up to what you think of them?
Well, we got to take into account that Jimmy Callaway is a guy they expect to play a key role this year. He didn't play last night. Velus Jones has been kind of limited through camp. He didn't really play last night.
Yeah.
I mean, those are two of their top 6 receivers. So it's hard to know exactly what that group looks like. But Jalen Hyatt should be the game-breaking guy in that group, and he had a couple key drops, as we've touched on. But on the other end, too, Cedric Tillman should have had 3 touchdowns yesterday. I mean, there were 2 that were missed there. And we are talking about, I mean, if those 2 touchdowns are converted, they're in the 40s, if not the 50s. And at that point, you do feel a lot differently about this. But they also were a great Cedric Tillman catch in the fourth quarter away from this only being a 31-6 win. Yeah. So you kind of got to take it both ways there. I do think the wide receivers are talented, though. I do think that's a group that should make more plays. They whiffed last night, though, and that was a combination of quarterback play, and that was a combination of some drops and some guys being out. So I guess we can't really make a full judgment on that group yet until we probably see Velus Jones get full run and also see Jimmy Callaway in there, because that was a guy who maybe, as much as anyone, got a lot of good buzz during the preseason.
Mike, what's your biggest concern with Pittsburgh coming in? I think that is a fantastic test for this team to get Bowling Green first. He was terrible last year. So that'd be like playing a team of your 2s and your 3s if you're Tennessee. So you basically have to have a great scrimmage against 2s and 3s who were trying to beat you with different coaches. But you're going to get Pittsburgh. They're probably pretty darn even with you right now. That's a fantastic test coming up. What are your biggest concerns with the Panthers?
Yeah, the concern is exactly the offensive execution for Tennessee, because Pat Narduzzi is a defensive guy. I covered him for 2 years at Michigan State, and those defenses were absolutely insane. What he's able to do, he's a great defensive mind. They typically are very good in the secondary, and that's exactly where Tennessee struggled against Bowling Green. So you're facing a defense with more of a pulse for starters that might actually be a reliable unit. And right away, Tennessee's got to get those points that they didn't get against Bowling Green. The places that the execution was bad, the margin for error is much different now against Pitt. So yeah, it would definitely focus on the passing game going up against a really good defensive staff.
And looking forward, it's not really, if they can beat Pittsburgh, out of the question that if you can play with Missouri and South Carolina, you're in 4 of the 5 games that you start with. You might be 4-1.
It is. It's conceivable. That Florida game, obviously going down there and the end of September is rough.
Yeah.
But I mean, Pitt is the first game on this schedule that has to go Tennessee's way if they're going to reach a bowl game this season. I mean, this is one of those ones you look at. I think you look at Missouri and Kentucky as the other 2 that those are those swing games where Tennessee has to find a way. And you have to avoid losing to South Carolina and Vanderbilt because those realistically should be the lowest 2 SEC teams this season that Tennessee faces. So Pitt right away is a game that you say, all right, you're either looking at maybe a 3-2 start or a 2-3 start or a potential 4-1 start. And that's a huge difference once you get into that meat of the SEC schedule to already have 4 wins under your belt.
Absolutely, Mike. Great stuff. At by Mike Wilson on Twitter. Of course, anywhere people want to consume the Knoxville News Sentinel, they need to do so. Always great catching up with you, man. Have a great weekend. Enjoy a Saturday of not covering college football. Enjoy it.
I am just sad I'm not in Jonesboro, Mickey.
Me too. Me too, because I would show you what a great time this place is. It's the Caribbean of Northeast Arkansas. Thank you, Mike.
Thank y'all for having me.
Yes, sir. Mike Wilson. On the way out, when we come back, we do this every Friday at 2:45. We're going to call our shot. You got a shot that you want to call? Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline's open, 615-737-1045. Could be Tennessee related. Could be Milton related. Guess what? There's a full slate of college games this weekend. Maybe it's related to one of those games, whatever it is. Maybe it's Titans related. We haven't talked to a whole lot of Titans today. Maybe you want to work some of that in. It's all up to you. Call your shot next on Blaine and Mickey.
It's Beach at the the 104.5 The Zone Football Friday Night Game of the Week. Presented by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office and Paul Winkler Investing. Coverage starts tonight at 6 with Will Bowling and Lucas Panzica on your home for high school football. 104.5 The Zone.
Hey, you can't ask for two better days to do it. Vols preview, Vols recap. My honor, Mickey.
I asked this question on Blaine and Mickey. We'll call our shot. You want to sneak one in, you can do it 615-737-1045, Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. I asked this question on Blaine and Mickey. Vols fans, with one game in the books, how are you feeling about the team? 4.6%, feeling great. I put the old fist bump emoji there. 52.5%, feeling okay. That's a majority, and that's like a shrug emoji. They're feeling okay. Not so good. I don't even know what this emoji means, but it's just some funny eyeballs on a little yellow face. 34.6%, not so good. And then I use the sick emoji, and that's 8.3%. So if you look at this thing on a bell curve, it's just basically it's the perfect bell curve. Okay. The people who are like, everything's great, because there's always that guy. And then I feel sick because there's always that guy. And it's about, that's the smaller amount. And most everybody else, just like on every political matter, on everything that comes up in the meaty
part of the curve.
that's where we're sitting for everybody. So I think people want to see more, and I'm sure I'll say this again during this week, and we'll call our shot in a minute. That's where the Pittsburgh game comes in, because what did Mike Wilson say? Pat Narduzzi doesn't have a token defense, something along those lines. And Blaine has said this too, and he loves college football. He said, Pittsburgh's going to bring a defense. A defense is going to get off the bus, and they're going to try to whip your butt. They were a top 40 defense last year. Rashad Weaver is on the Titans now, and they had other NFL
they had two good
talent.
pass rushers, yeah.
Yep. So obviously they lost some talent because one of those dudes is playing for the Titans now, but Narduzzi always seems to get the most out of his defense. Pittsburgh, traditionally, maybe not a powerhouse, but always a good team, and they'll get off the bus and they'll try to beat you. So how much better can the Vols get in a week offensively? And as you said, this is a great point. Can they kind of ratchet things up on defense? I know they held Bowling Green to 6 points. Can they take the ball away? Can they create more havoc?
Mm-hmm. I'm even fine with giving up more yards. Now, maybe not against Bowling Green, but against Pittsburgh, sure, as long as you are able to create some opportunistic plays and make it easy on your offense once or twice. I know they've got a good system, but I guarantee you Josh Heupel would not like to not have to go 70 to 80 yards every drive. Give them a short field once or twice. It's really the opportunity that you're giving the offense to push their score from 38 to 50. I mean, that's how you get that done until Tennessee starts to get great playmakers in that, just are going to score 50 for being out on the field. I think you look at the Johnny Majors Bowl, longtime Tennessee fans will get that, the Johnny Majors Bowl, as the perfect test between SEC play and Bowling Green. Pittsburgh's nothing to write home about, but it's going to be a great barometer for the Vols. And Mike Wilson said it. You want to get to a bowl game, 6-7 wins, you better win that one.
Well, with Tennessee Tech, too, no matter what happens, you've got a chance to kind of lick your wounds. And certainly, you don't look ahead of anybody, but you can look ahead of them. The schedule really has worked out great for Tennessee to start the season.
It's the best schedule they've had. They don't have the murderer's row of 5 games in October this year, which is a real blessing. They could be 4-1. You play really well, you'd be 4-1. No doubt about it.
Tennessee Tech before Florida is huge because, again, it kind of gives you a chance to work on Florida because you ought to just be able to line up and beat Tennessee Tech. So the scheduling coach, thumbs up to the scheduling coach. All right, time to call our shot. Lucas Panzica is standing by the microphone. He is just flexing. He's doing some side straddle hops. He's got his game face on. I feel like we should just let him roll with this. Lucas is ready to just fire this thing off like a Joe Milton 10-yard pass that could go 80 yards. What you got, Lucas?
It's a twofer on what is on what's a big weekend in Nissan Stadium before the Titans kick off against Arizona. Nashville SC tonight against New York City FC. I think it's a draw. Nashville losing a lot of guys to World Cup qualifiers. I think they play out a scoreless 1-1 type of draw. And then USA wins against Canada on Sunday. The whole squad is here. Christian Pulisic training at Lipscomb, I think, as we speak. He's been here all week. Wow. He should be in action on Sunday. Hopefully he will be. But I think USA gets the win against Canada, and it should be a fun environment.
Eat it, Canada. All right, Alex Apple. In the back bacon bowl.
Yeah, Monday is Labor Day. I'll be on with Lucas from 11 to 2. Buck will be out looking for a pool and a cabana somewhere probably. I'm going to talk a little Vanderbilt just to give them an homage. I really like Clark Lee. I like Barton Simmons, NBA guys. I'm partial. Go Big Red. But I think Vanderbilt's going to break the 10-game win streak. The last time they won a game, they played ETSU. Well, they got ETSU back this weekend. ETSU 21-point dogs. I actually bet ETSU might cover. I'm not sure about the Vanderbilt offense. I know Clark Lee can coach defense. Offense is a total mystery. Give me ETSU to cover, Vanderbilt to get off the schneid, though, and I'll see Lucas on Monday.
Here's mine. JT Daniels must have MF'd everybody on the staff last year, because why did he not play sooner for Georgia?
That is a great question.
Was he dating the coach's daughter or something? Like, what in the world?
It was a knee injury, but nobody expected it to hold him out that long.
That was a suspect knee injury right there.
Hey, come on, man. I mean, I think JT Daniels is going to be the real difference. Well, he needs to be. He needs to play winning football for them. But it's 2.5 points they got with Clemson. I think it's 2.5 on FanDuel right now. I like Georgia to beat them. And here's the thing. If you're Georgia, you need to beat them. Beat them. Go beat Clemson. It's first game of the year. This is your opportunity. Just go out and maul them like a bear.
Huge
or a
chance.
dog in this case. Yeah.
Wow.
That's my shot.
I think I would have gone Clemson. I like that, though. I mean, it's going to be a great weekend. I can't wait to just plop down and watch a little football. I actually can't wait for the weekend after this. We're about to tighten up, baby.
All right, let me show everybody where I am one last time. I'm at the Mothership. Tonight is the Hall of Honor banquet. We've got friends going in the Hall of Fame tomorrow. A-State on the field. Hey, everybody, enjoy your weekend. You got college football. You got 3HL coming up next. Happy Friday to you. And in honor of my friend Blaine and Alex Apple, I will tell you, peace.
Have a great weekend, everybody.